Original.
Hello and welcome to Web Crawlers, the podcast where we do a deep dive into some of our favorite unsolved mysteries. Each week, we will introduce our topic, lay out our research and findings, reveal some conspiracy theories, and conclude with our own hypothesis. Who knows, we might even solve the case. I am Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Stettin.
And I'm producer Maria.
Web Crawlers has a Patreon to get access to rewards, bonus episodes, shout outs, merch discounts, and more. Please go to patreon.com/webcrawlers. You can donate as little as $2 a month to become one of our bimbo patrons.
Are you guys still on Cameo?
Yeah, but I honestly, I just don't like it.
And we're not in the same room ever because we're still recording remotely. So it's kind of hard to do a web crawlers
give
cameo.
people what they want.
Yeah.
And it's just not, it's money-wise, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, up that, what if you did $150 and then you just waited for someone to pay it? But you can put it out there.
I'll raise it to $200, and if someone wants to pay $200 for a cameo, we'll do it.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Heard it here.
Also, we should do maybe a Patreon episode about some new stuff we discovered yesterday. There is a picture of Jean Bonnet with Ghislaine in the background. And this is a substantiated picture. If you go on Google Images, this picture has existed for a while. It hasn't been proven that it is Ghislaine in the background, but you can tell it's Ghislaine.
It's her.
It's her. Absolutely her.
Ghislaine's lawyers were the same lawyers as John Benet Ramsey's father.
Yes. So there already is a link. And John Benet died on Ghislaine's birthday, on her 35th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What does it all mean?
And then Melissa realized something interesting yesterday having to do with the Bahamas and Epstein's Island and Natalie Holloway. So we should do a little episode on that just for our patrons. So
yeah, we'll put the pieces together.
Although we kind of just did the episode, but just now in the last 2 seconds. But yeah, so that's the kind of stuff you'll be able to find on our Patreon. You can also tip us. So if you like an episode or just think we're great, throw us $1 or $2. The link is supporter.acast.com/webcrawlers. By donating, it's a good way to support women in the arts.
Women in the arts.
Yeah, just you gotta put in that philanthropic ones. You can also please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you give us a 5-star review, screenshot and DM it to us, and we will shout you out on the podcast. And last but not least, Erios has a hotline. Insert jingle here.
626-604-6262.
It's really been popping off, and we've been getting tons of messages, enough that we now have mailbag episodes, so please keep them coming. Melissa, who are our patrons for this episode?
We have Michaela, Peyton S., Christy W., Jake S., Emily S., Amy, and Aubrey S.
Wow, lots of S's.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
What if that was all S was for Siegel and this was all my extended family?
It's all your third and fourth cousins.
All my third and fourth cousins. Well, let's get into our main story of the day, which is pretty fascinating.
This was recommended by producer Maria.
Oh, wow.
Really? What are you doing?
You'll see.
Well, no, what is it?
So, in 1951, in August, residents of the small French village of Pont-Saint-Esprit suddenly started having terrifying hallucinations. Some people imagined lions and tigers were coming to eat them. A man jumped out of a window thinking he was a dragonfly. At least 7 people died, and over 50 people were taken to the local asylum in straitjackets, and hundreds more were affected. Theories started circulating to explain this mysterious case of mass insanity. Was it poisoned flour, contaminated water, witchcraft? Or Did the CIA spike the food with LSD as part of a mind control experiment during the Cold War? What caused this le pain maudit, which means cursed bread in French?
Let's get into it.
Okay, so what happened? In August 1951, inhabitants of the small village in the south of France started going crazy.
Do you want to hear something real quick about French?
Yes.
Yeah.
I took French for 10 years in high school, and I even did a summer at the
Sorbonne.
No, I wish, but
Lycée, the French school.
No, it's called the American School in Switzerland, TASIS. And I took French there all summer, and I don't remember a lick of French.
No, I took Spanish my whole life, and I can say the basics.
I took Latin.
I don't know.
But when I got my wisdom teeth removed and I was under anesthesia, apparently I spoke fluent French to the doctor.
No way.
Really?
Yeah. So I think it's still somewhere in your brain or your subconscious, but you just have to tap into it.
Wow.
Whoa.
My husband speaks French. I don't know.
Ooh, does he say voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?
He says, Donde está la bibliothèque? I think that's two languages. That's Spanish and French. Anyway. So people in this French village started going loco.
Loco in la cabeza.
A man was hallucinating that blood was dripping from his ceiling.
Oh
and he said his daughter was also hallucinating that bears were trying to eat her. Jesus. And her mouth was full of hair that she couldn't pull out.
Yeah, that's so gross.
And a postman, Leon Armunier, was doing his rounds when he was suddenly overwhelmed by nausea and wild hallucinations.
Wow.
He said that it was terrible. He said he had the sensation of shrinking, and fire and serpents were coiling around his arms.
Oof.
Jesus, like Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Yeah. He fell off his bike and he was taken to the hospital in Avignon. He was put in a straitjacket, but he shared a room with 3 teenagers who had been chained to their beds to keep them under control.
Oh my God.
Sounds like a sitcom.
Yeah.
It does.
A crazy post office worker gets sent to a recovery clinic where he meets his 3 roommates, the coolest teenagers on the block.
Hilarity ensues. He said, some of my friends tried to get out of the window. They were thrashing wildly, screaming, and the sound of the metal beds and the jumping up and down, the noise was terrible. Oof. I'd prefer to die rather than go through that again.
Oh my God.
Coming this fall to CBS.
Young Sheldon.
This Monday after Young Sheldon. Watch the premiere of
The Good Doctor.
The Good Doctor.
They need The Good Doctor.
Yeah, they sure do.
People complained of nausea and stomach pain, weak blood pressure and faint pulses, cold sweats and low temperatures. Worst of all, everybody had insomnia and smelled.
Smelled?
Ew.
A report in the British Medical Journal said a state of giddiness persisted, accompanied by abundant sweating and a disagreeable odor. People would compare the stench of the fragrance of dead mice.
You know, if you have, some people say if you have candida, like if there's an imbalance of mold in your body, you can smell it.
Yeast infection?
Not like a pussy yeast infection, but if you have an imbalance, you can smell you smell moldy. You smell like a wet blanket.
Have you ever dated someone who just didn't smell right?
Well, allegedly, you're not supposed to like the smell of your siblings or parents, and that's biologically so that you don't want to have sex with them.
Oh.
Doesn't work.
That's
for
the
me,
only
though.
deterrent. Nah, I was going to, but they smell weird. but they're super
weird,
hot. So this incident made headlines in the newspapers. They had no idea what was making everybody lose their minds. 7 people died, over 300 were poisoned, and 50 people were admitted to psychiatric wards. One man thought he was a dragonfly, jumped out of a window. He died. People were hallucinating fire everywhere. They were fighting and slapping each other. And of the people who died, they all died of sudden heart failures.
Oh my God.
Yeah, crazy.
So investigators thought that it was the return of St. Anthony's fire, a disease that killed many thousands in the Middle Ages. I thought that was a movie, but that was St. Elmo's fire, right?
That was St. Elmo's fire.
Caused by a pair. What's that about?
I think it's like about just a group of friends. Right?
Oh, is it about a group of friends in an insane asylum?
No. That's the sitcom. That's the Bread Boys.
St. Anthony's
The Bread
fire.
Boys.
The Bread Boys.
A disease that killed many thousands in the Middle Ages, caused by a parasitic ergot fungus that grows on rye. The town baker, was accused of poisoning everyone. And he was like arrested.
Yeah.
He actually confessed, but then later was released because he said his confession was made under pressure, like under duress. And there was no evidence to support the theory that the town baker just decided to poison everyone.
They didn't have any proof.
Oh, Maria.
Oh, the proof. You gotta
That's
proof
pretty
the
good.
bread.
Then they thought it was water poisoning from mercury or a nearby gas factory. Otherwise, never mind. But evidence.
What's a gas factory, Allie? Don't say it.
I was going to say otherwise known as Maria's butt. But evidence disproved. Did Pickles get upset I offended you?
Yeah, she doesn't like fart jokes.
Yeah, I actually don't either. They're lowbrow humor. But evidence disproved that theory as well. Some residents thought that it was foul play because it was the height of the Cold War. America and France were allies, so it could have potentially been Russia, maybe. Then this guy, Hank Borelli, pops up. The case remains mostly unsolved until 2009, when a journalist named Hank Abarelli was investigating the suspicious death of a biochemist in the CIA named Frank Olson. We've talked about him before during MK Ultra.
We have.
Frank worked in chemical weapons and carried out experiments with drugs like LSD. He was also in France a few months before the bread incident. So Hank was like, I wonder if Frank Olson had anything to do with the poisoning. He believes it was a U.S. Army covert experiment. Frank was a CIA agent who had LSD put into his coffee cup unknowingly in 1955, and 9 days later jumped out of a 13th floor window and died. Was it murder or suicide? Now, according to another doc that I watched yesterday, I don't even know if it was a doc. It was some like YouTuber who was like does true crime. I can't even remember who it was.
Was it Brie Larson?
Yes.
No.
Because Allie, she started a YouTube channel. It's just a hot topic.
Brie
What?
Larson.
Are you serious? She did?
Yes, she's a YouTuber now. Duh. Haven't you guys been watching E?
Wow, quarantine comes for us all.
Yeah, she wants to talk about. She said, I remember the commercial on or whatever on E. They have like little news breaks, and then they said she's gonna talk about really serious topics, but she's also gonna have some fun too.
Cool.
Good for her.
Good for Brie.
Frank Olson, American biochemist, committed suicide. He was working for the American military for special operations. He had expressed guilt after 1951 to his wife, saying he couldn't handle what he had done.
Oh.
So what had he done? And then he threw himself out of a 13th floor window.
Or so they want us to think.
Yeah, so they want us to think. So Frank Olson continued. Olson had spent 10 years at Fort Detrick and knew most, if not all, of the Special Operation Division's secrets. He had repeatedly visited Germany and brought home pictures from Heidelberg and Berlin, where the U.S. military maintained interrogation centers. So the CIA has centers like all over Europe.
Yeah.
He was also one of the several Special Operation Division scientists who were in France right before, obviously, this happened, this whole mass hysteria in Pont-Saint-Esprit. And also, doctors were obviously experimenting on humans at the time. They were testing radiation on the army. They were testing LSD, everything. So people think that Pont-Esprit was the joint work of the American Army and CIA operatives. Hank, the journalist, found a document from 1949, right before this thing happened. And it was from a CIA operative and a representative from a place called Sandoz Labs, which spoke of a quote-unquote secret operative that was going to happen in Pont-Saint-Esprit, that ergot poisoning was actually the D from LSD. So they had found that this poisoning could actually be made into LSD. So why Pont-Saint-Esprit, since it's kind of like a random small town in France? So apparently it's only 1 day of travel away from this Sandoz laboratory, which is based out of Switzerland. And assumingly the CIA, I guess, is probably using Sandoz Labs to create LSD or do testing. So that's probably why they chose this little French town right next to Sandoz Laboratories.
Oh, that makes sense.
Wow. Also weird that I learned French in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine.
Okay, continue.
So, in 1938, before all this happened, a scientist at Sandoz Labs, which is still around, like I've gotten pharmaceuticals from Sandoz.
Yeah, they still exist.
Yeah, a lot of my Lexapro comes from them.
Hell yeah,
Shout
baby.
out Lexapro. So in 1938, the scientist at Sandoz, Albert Hofmann, he's the one who discovered lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD. And it's derived from the ergot fungus that some say was growing on the same rye that poisoned the bread at Pont-Saint-Esprit. So this fungus is like part of LSD.
Oh.
So ergot fungus contains lysergic acid, 2 parts of LSD. And so lysergic acid can also be produced synthetically. So you can make LSD in a lab, or part of LSD comes from this rye fungus that grows on this rye.
I only go my LSD is, I only go organic, natural. I only do rock LSD.
Rock LSD.
That came out easy for you, Maria.
Oh, God. Look at...
So the CIA was super interested in LSD, so they could use it as like a truth serum or for mind control. And they tested it on over 7,000 soldiers. And eventually they started conducting tons of experiments, including Bluebird, Artichoke, and MK Ultra.
You know what's... Well, you keep going. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, it's just something that I learned when I saw that documentary, but you might cover it, so I don't want to jump the gun.
No, say it.
What
It's
is
okay.
it? Say it.
Well, the fact that they were doing testing on prisoners, just like regular prisoners.
Right.
That they were just like... I mean, that's nuts. Like, to do that, like like a government agency doing that to American citizens.
It's
in
crazy.
prison.
Think
It's
about what they're
crazy.
probably doing now. Like,
Yeah.
there's
I
no
know.
reason why all of a sudden they wouldn't be doing this shit. Like, it's crazy.
Except that it came out.
Well, yeah, there's
and,
like laws
people
against it, but like...
they caught wind of it. But, you know, I don't know, but I'm sure. I don't
The
know.
more we do this podcast, the more I'm turning into like a QAnon person.
Oh, no.
No, you're Anon. You're Anon.
What's Anon?
Allie
Oh, Allie-anon.
Ally Anonymous.
It's your own theory.
Allie Anonymous is all the people who date me who don't want anyone to know.
They all have a group, so they meet up once a
Called
week
Anon.
and talk about you.
Yeah.
So they were testing so many soldiers that they ran out of test subjects, which is according to this documentary that's on Vimeo that's called CIA Covert Experiments that like talks all about this. So why would they choose Pont-Saint-Esprit, which is a small village? Well, in September 1950, exactly 1 year before the Pont-Saint-Esprit incident, the U.S. Navy conducted Operation Sea Spray in San Francisco. So it's a Navy ship just off the coast of San Francisco used a giant hose to spray a cloud of microbes into the air and into the city's famous fog. So the military was testing how a biological weapon attack would affect the 800,000 residents of the city.
And what did it do?
Well, it was called Sriracha marquescens bacillus globigi is the name of the germ.
You know what's crazy though? Is that where Craig and I visited the Sriracha plant.
Sriracha, yeah.
Factory. We went to the Sriracha factory. It's like outside of LA.
Is it hard
And the
to breathe?
Sriracha factory actually was almost shut down because residents were saying the fumes from the Sriracha factory were burning their eyes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know what other factory burns people's eyes?
What, Allie?
The gas factory.
Your butt.
Okay, where was I?
So they sent in the microbes into the air, and what did it cause people to do?
Well, they believed that it was harmless. They just wanted to see what would happen if they sprayed it. But 11 people were hospitalized with Sriracha infections, and one person died from pneumonia who had this infection. So apparently it did affect some people. It gave them like lung issues.
Why on earth is it okay to test out things on American citizens?
This was 1950. Like, this was like when they first started. This was before anyone was like, knew that this was going on. And this is a real thing that happened. This isn't like a theory.
Yeah.
This is
It's not okay. The government's insane. They don't give a shit about you or your rights or your health.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, Sidney Gottlieb.
Well, listen, my reaction to it. Yep.
Yep. Sidney Gottlieb, who's a mastermind of the whole thing, who's a military chemist and secret operative who was obsessed with LSD, he was behind a lot of the MK Ultra stuff. This is from The Guardian. It says, there he came to know Sidney Gottlieb and his deputy, Robert Lashbrook, the two scientists who would soon be running a top-secret CIA project codenamed MK Ultra. Gottlieb was the CIA's chief poison maker. Over 2 decades, he oversaw medical experiments and special interrogation projects in which hundreds of people were tormented. Many minds were permanently shattered, including the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. Yeah, he participated. During this period, there was an obsession at the CIA that they thought there was a way to control the human mind. And if it could be found, the prize would be global mastery. So MK Ultra was a top secret program of experiments in mind control that used doses of LSD, giving to quote unquote expendables. And so Gottlieb wanted to see how much LSD a human could take. Like, what's the threshold on LSD?
What's the breaking point? Yeah.
Yeah, was there a breaking point, he wondered? So a dose so massive that it would shatter the mind and blast away consciousness, leading to a void into which new impulses or even a new personality could be implanted. Like, they wanted to break down people and like retrain them as like soldiers.
Tabula rasa. They wanted a blank slate.
Yeah, they did. Also in 1955, they sprayed whooping cough bacteria off the coast of Tampa and 2 people died.
What?
Yeah.
What was their reasoning for that?
For testing out to see how large populations
you
react
can't
to
do
Biochemical
that.
warfare, man.
Yeah, you can't
On
do
your
that
own
anymore.
people?
Yeah, 50s were wild.
Corona's
they were.
real, but like every pandemic, you're like, what is this? How did it start?
Chemtrails, dude. Chemtrails.
baby. In the 1955, which we talked about, Operation Climax, where they gave LSD to people in San Francisco and they let them have sex
Made them
with
have sex with hookers.
Yeah.
No, not sex workers.
Ladies of the night. Or
Ladies of the
evening.
night. We get a lot of emails about how we address sex workers.
Sex workers.
We are pro sex work.
Oh yeah, sex work is.
We're not pro people who are forced into sex work.
No, but if you choose to do it, fucking great.
Great. Get that money.
So the
Girl or
CIA So the CIA did do covert biological weapons experimentation on unsuspecting people. So what would stop them from doing it on a small village in 1951?
Exactly. Yeah.
So now it's on to our theories.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So LSD is a common theory. So Albert Hoffman initially said that the side effects from the small village could definitely be caused by LSD.
I guess since like one thing to say is that like we obviously went the LSD route on this. What they claimed was that like, oh, the bread was bad. The bread had this mold. It made everyone go crazy. Like, whoopsies. It was just it was spoiled bread that had a weird mold. Everyone hallucinated for a little bit. It won't happen again.
Sorry.
But everyone knows that it was actually the government.
Albert Hoffman, the guy who like discovered LSD, was like, yeah, this totally could have been from LSD. But then later he backtracked. And then when they tried to reach him for comment, he was never able to be contacted again. Like all the Sandoz scientists.
He had hung himself in his cell.
Yeah, all the scientists at Sandoz were like, no, it's definitely not LSD. Like they had to cover his tracks. They're like, no, what are you talking about? Then no one ever said anything again.
Yeah, they're like, sorry, we're too busy filling Melissa's Lexapro prescription.
Yeah. Here, we're busy making Lexapro.
Yeah.
So in a document from 1953, a director at Sandoz confirmed to a secret agent that it was LSD poisoning in Pont-Saint-Esprit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was. There's like no way it wasn't. That's crazy.
Ergot or ergo. I don't know how to pronounce it. There's two different ways.
Yeah.
So most academic sources blame ergot poisoning.
What does it mean when you say ergo?
Ergo, doesn't mean like therefore.
Yeah, I think it means
it's like
therefore.
so.
Yeah.
Ergo, it was ergot. So scientists writing in the British Medical Journal declared that the outbreak of the poisoning was produced by ergot fungus. The victims appeared to have one common connection. They had eaten bread from the bakery of Roche Briand, who was subsequently blamed for using flour made with contaminated rye. So the flour had been contaminated by a fungus known as ergot, which produces alkaloids similar to LSD.
Wow.
So this ergot poisoning could also be attributed to the Salem witch trials. Remember we talked about this?
Right. Yeah.
A while ago, that perhaps when everyone was like, oh, they're a witch, they're going crazy, they're infected with hysteria, there was like a crop of rye that could potentially be infected with ergot.
Yeah. One thing that's really crazy, this is a true story about moldy bread. It's actually really insane. No, this is like a really cool story. So my dad knew this doctor or is friends with this doctor. And
Doctor professional.
Yeah. He's friends with this doctor. And this man came in who was a Holocaust survivor. And he was getting like a checkup or something. And they did a MRI or a scan or whatever of his lungs. And he had a lot of scarring in his lungs. And the doctor was like, it seems like you've had pneumonia or like really bad pneumonia at some point. Did you know that? And the guy was like, no, like I didn't know I had pneumonia ever. Or he was like, yeah, I've been really sick, but like I've never been diagnosed with pneumonia. Like I've never taken medication for pneumonia. And what it was that during the Holocaust, like the Jews were fed a lot of like moldy and expired food. But the mold, penicillin, is made from mold.
Right.
So like the moldy bread and the moldy food that he was giving like was penicillin, which treated like whatever the pneumonia he had. So isn't that crazy? So like I guess at some point he like had pneumonia, but the mold from the bread that he was like given during the Holocaust by the Nazis ended up treating his pneumonia.
So you're saying we should eat moldy bread?
Well, actually, the reason my dad told me this story was because I'm quarantining at my parents' house and I tried to make toast and the bread was like so moldy, and I freaked out at my parents, and I was like, you cannot serve me moldy food. And then my dad was like, actually, moldy food is good, and then told me that story. And then I was like, well, I can't say anything now. You bring up the Holocaust.
Unless you're allergic to penicillin. And
Right.
then he
Good
could
point.
be killing you.
That's a good point.
What
So
if
anyways,
moldy
that's
bread is the
interesting.
cure to coronavirus?
You never know.
I'm sure they've looked into it. I'm sure it's the first thing they think because they go, well,
Let's
the
antibiotics.
cure's that. Yeah.
That's
that.
crazy. That is
Wild, right?
wild.
So anyways, another theory is, was it Russia poisoning them? Because this was at the height of the Cold War. However,
Yeah.
like, why would they choose this tiny village? It's
Yeah,
just like kind
why?
of random. Then another possibility is mercury poisoning due to fungicides used to treat the grains and the seeds. But like, I feel like mercury poisoning gets a weird rep because like people are like, don't eat too much sushi, you'll get mercury
Right.
poisoning. It takes so much mercury in your system, I think, to feel the effects
Well,
of
didn't
mercury.
Jeremy
What about
Piven
Jeremy
had-
Piven?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeremy Piven's a psychopath. I wouldn't be surprised if Jeremy Piven was eating 5 whole swordfish a day, just straight into his gullet.
Well, I think that the rumor was because he was doing a play at the time is that he faked mercury poisoning
Right.
so he wouldn't have to do the play anymore.
That wouldn't surprise me. Jeremy Piven's a fucking weirdo.
Did you guys ever listen to that podcast S-Town?
I know what it is, but I didn't listen to it.
Well, you remember that one guy, he was making, he's like fixing clocks or fixing something in his garage, and he kept inhaling the metal that he was working on, and it like made you go crazy, and it like deteriorates your brain. And he went
my
like
God.
crazy. I can't remember if that was mercury or not,
I have that.
but it does make you go crazy.
Jeremy Piven is also charging like $15,000 on Cameo for video chatting. So
Oh,
maybe the mercury
God.
poisoning is
You
what's
should
causing it.
take a number. You should take, what do you call
Use
it? Take a
all of
number
our
out of his
podcast
book.
earnings.
Yeah, or we can just start charging that. Yeah, take a note from Jeremy
You got to
Piven,
charge
not a
high
number.
because he probably doesn't want to be doing them, and he's just like, no, I'll do it like this. And if some like rich guy wants me to say, "What's up? I'm Jeremy Piven," then great.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he's smart. Like, he's the smartest businessman I know.
I agree. He should be president. In 2008, President Piven does have a ring to it. In 2008, historian Stephen Kaplan published a book on the incident, and in it, he asserts that the incident was not connected to either LSD or ergot poisoning. He said it might have been caused by nitrogen trichloride used to artificially and illegally bleach flour.
Okay.
I don't know about that. I bleach my hair all the time, and I'm fine.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. Rude, but I don't think it was that.
Another theory is the CIA poisoned them in order to test a deliriant incapacitating agent, which is like a truth serum or memory wiper, so they could program them to kill. In his 2009 book, A Terrible Mistake, the journalist Hank Abarelli, he said that the Special Operations Division of the CIA tested LSD on the people as part of its MK Naomi chemical behavior program in a field test dubbed Project SPAN. According to Albarelli, the ergot contamination explanation has been ruled out, and he said the ergot poisoning was a cover story.
Oh, shit.
In his book, it said biochemists were dispatched to the scene from the nearby Sandoz chemical company in Basel, Switzerland. Included was Albert Hoffman, the man who had first synthesized LSD. And at the time, only a handful of scientists worldwide, estimated to be no more than 8 to 10, knew of the existence of this LSD. And virtually nobody in France, apart from a select few officials at the Sandoz Chemical Laboratory, were aware that the company was secretly working closely with the CIA. So Sandoz was working with the CIA back then. But then I was like, can you die from LSD?
Maybe if you don't, maybe from shock. Like
That's what I was thinking.
All of a sudden,
like,
I started tripping. Or if you have a pre-existing condition, you probably can.
right. Like if you start hallucinating something is like coming to eat you, and you could have a heart attack, I guess. Because the people died
for
from heart
sure.
failure. The 7 people in the village died from heart failure.
Yeah, if you don't know what's going, if you don't know
Right.
that you're tripping, and then all of a sudden you're like, my mouth is filled with hair, I'd freak out so
Yeah.
hard I'd have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Have you ever done LSD? We've probably talked about this before.
No, I've only done mushrooms.
Maria?
No. I'm high on life.
Huh. I feel like people do LSD all the time to like relax. Like it's one of those like ketamine things where people like dose themselves for anxiety.
Like microdosing.
Yeah, I feel like people microdose LSD.
Yeah, I've heard of microdosing mushrooms, and I don't know if I've heard of microdosing LSD, but yeah, I guess you could.
I think that's what all the people in Silicon Valley are doing, is the
Right?
LSD microdosing.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I can see how microdosing mushrooms could be helpful. Like I would for sure try that, because the times that I've done mushrooms, it's been great. I've had a really fun time. What was your faces?
This is crazy. Okay, in recent years, a new form of substance abuse is becoming increasingly common among stay-at-home moms and CEOs alike, microdosing LSD.
Oh,
Reportedly, microdosing certain psychedelic drugs can improve mood, include physical mental stimulation, and encourage creative thinking. It also helps to treat issues such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD.
yeah, I could see that.
I would hate if my stay-at-home mom was microdosing LSD. That's so
would
stressful.
Know. You would know. She'd be so cool. She'd be like, come on, Allie, come in. How was school?
Yeah, that's so crazy.
I feel like every time I've done mushrooms, or like for the weeks and months after, I feel like I am in like a good mood, or like it affects me
Oh.
much longer than like just, the 4 or 5 hours that it lasts, because it really is like, it's really fun. Like I've had no bad experiences with mushrooms. Like I would for sure do it again.
Maybe there's some sort of feels microdosing type thing.
I mean, if
Should ask
mushrooms,
feels if they do LSD.
well, it's illegal. So I probably don't.
For something that's illegal, I feel like the government's really pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you guys aren't like gelling with me today.
No, I get it.
I feel like there's like, I don't feel a connection. And it's
How
fine,
could
but
we
I
have
just want
responded to you in that moment? No. That's fair. That's fair, Allie. Say it again. Let's do this again. Let's start over.
No, I don't want to.
But let's just be aware.
No, I don't want to. No, I don't want to anymore.
No, I agree with you. What did you say?
I don't even remember what I said, to be honest.
The government's pushing LSD on everyone.
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, that's what I was saying. For the government pushing LSD so hard, it's weird that it's illegal.
Okay, how are they pushing it though?
They're spraying it onto people and making whole towns crazy.
Well, that's because that's behind closed doors. It's not like they're pushing it on us, being like, "Hey, yeah, try it."
Yeah, they
you
wanted
know?
to see if they could turn into like a truth serum.
They wanted to use it against people.
Yeah.
I just don't know, man. I'll just talk about it with my real friends. It's fine.
To be honest, I have to go to the bathroom.
Number one. Number two. That looks like a number 2 face to me.
I was gonna make a gas factory joke. I was gonna say there's a.
Well, that's okay. We've gone through all our theories, so we can pretty much wrap it
Well,
up.
there's one theory that I'm shocked Allie hasn't brought up.
What is it?
Mushrooms.
Oh, like maybe it was a truffle bread, and the truffles were actually
'Cause it was
mushrooms, and it
France.
went
It
everyone.
was just mushrooms. Everyone was on mushrooms.
That
so
is possible.
funny.
Let's Google.
Pont-Saint-Esprit.
Esprit, magical mushrooms and mystical molds.
I mean, it could have gotten mixed in with the flour.
Hallucinogenic
Or maybe it was a nice
werewolves.
mushroom bread. It was like a nice baguette with
And the
a
baker
mushroom.
ran out of mushrooms and was like, "Well, I know the cow shit has mushrooms growing on it, so I'll just use that."
Wait a second. There's a whole bunch of stuff about werewolves.
Where? What?
Where?
There's
On the internet?
No, there's two different websites that say werewolves.
Werewolves.com?
No. Hallucinogenic werewolves, witches, and the accidental conceptions. Hold on.
Real wolfmen, true encounters.
When I look up Pont-Saint-Esprit mushrooms, like 3 different.
No, I'm here with you. This is on.
Are you? Yeah. What is this?
Google Books has a book called Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. And then it brings me to this chapter and it says, in the little town of Pont-Saint-Esprit, people began to come down with sudden fevers and morphed into delirious behavior. Not just a few, but 300 people succumbed to a bizarre malady that turned school children violent and made people run blindly through the town in belief they were being chased by packs of wild animals. Crazed, psychotic visions filled every head, and a few victims demonstrated unbelievable feats of strength. After a few days, their unkempt appearance and wild expressions began to make them look savage. Townsfolk began to whisper the dreaded word, werewolf. It took 2 weeks for local authorities to track the source to the bakery. Well, we know that that's not correct, so...
Wow.
People were turning into werewolves.
Guys. Okay. Another theory popping up.
Is this all making sense now?
What if the CIA was doing like experiments trying to turn humans into werewolves? That woman was like, my mouth is filling up with hair.
Oh, the hair.
Oh my God.
And and that one guy was like, I feel like my stomach's full of snakes. And they had what if he was just morphing into a werewolf? And like those guys had to be chained down because they were going so crazy. Like, what if the government was doing an experiment trying to morph people into werewolves, like superhuman strength fighters?
Yeah, we've all seen the Thriller music video where he turns into a werewolf and he gets real aggressive and crazy.
Yes. Like, what if that's what this was?
When he gets real good at basketball.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's weird that like there's more than one website on this. Like, this is this is an actual theory.
It's so weird because there are so many werewolf websites with this whole ergot thing.
Well, they did think it was witchcraft. That was like another theory.
Oh.
The white devil, the werewolf in European culture.
They called it werewolf fever.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, werewolf in literature origin. Yeah, people think that this was also a werewolf thing. A lycanthropologist in 1951 in the French, nearly 130. Okay, wait, whoa. Okay.
People are like saying that it has to do with the power of the moon. Virtually every sort of misfortune has been attributed to the moon's influence.
Wow, guys.
Convulsive ergotism, due to its profound symptoms and influence, has also been suggested as a possible cause of several outbreaks of werewolf and witch hysteria in Europe.
Wow.
Or ergot. Ergot is some sort of like, there's some sort of magical potion, and ergot is one of the components that, like, one of the final ingredients of the potion that turns you into.
Mm-hmm.
We've solved it.
All right. We're just not gelling. Melissa, if people want to reach us, where can people find us? Where can people find us?
I believe the werewolf theory. You can email us. What's our email address? webcrawlerspod@gmail.com. Or you can find us on the internet at webcrawlerspod.
Also, please do not, I think we just cracked a case. So please do not forget to tip us at supporter.acast.com/webcrawlers, supporter.acast.com/webcrawlers. Please tip us $1 for figuring out the origin of werewolves. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive. Anyways, we are going to end this episode now, so Maria can take a number 2.
No!
It's okay. Everyone does it. They even wrote a book about it. I am Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Howlin Stetton.
And I'm producer Maria, the Howler.
That's I'm gonna use that one.
Bye.
Bye.
An Erios original.
Powered by Acast.